Folks, this is Sarah Wiley, VP of Engineering at Mainframe.
Thank you. This is really exciting to be here. As she said, Sarah Wiley, VP of Engineering at Mainframe, and I am excited to show you what we've been working on for the last year. We've been building what we call Mainframe OS, and I'm going to tell you all about it. But first, we got to get going because our time is short. So anybody that's interested in following along, by the end of this session, you'll be all set up. You could be all set up to be able to build on some of our bounty challenges later this evening. So the step one is to go to our website, mainframe.com/developers. And from there, click the Getting Started or Get Started link. And that'll take you to our developer documentation site. So I'm going to do kind of a combination of live demo slides. We have actually a team of engineers here and product people and marketing people here to help, promote these challenges, to promote our platform, to help anybody that is interested in learning more about it. So most of us are wearing Mainframe t-shirts that's identifiable. Some not so much, but that's okay. Okay. So, website, getting started. Okay, then we kind of need to, I'm assuming anyone that's following along is going to have the prerequisites of Yarn and Node. So hopefully you've got those and we can kind of skip over having to install that stuff. Then we are working on a binary installer. It'll be ready soon. We'll have our kind of public release next week. In the meantime, we're building from source. So jump down right below that yellow strip. There's a link to that says Mainframe Platform. Also on the left side on the sidebar. So Mainframe Platform will tell us how to get the source and how to get set up. So you have to go to our Mainframe OS repo on GitHub. And there's the commands here if you want to copy paste to clone the repo. And then you need to check out our release branch, release v0.2 branch. So that's got the latest stuff merged just probably 5 minutes ago. So while anyone might be working on that, let me just give a little background about what is Mainframe OS. So Mainframe OS is an integrated development and execution environment for DApps. It is intended to simplify the creation and use of unstoppable, privacy-driven, decentralized applications. Some of the key, give me the thumbs up, like when we're, oh wow, okay. We're really starting from scratch here. Okay, well, I'm gonna just then move on because I don't think those steps were super long. So once you've checked out the repo, or checked out that branch, then we need to, if you're on Windows or Unix, there's a couple dependencies. There's some links on here that you can follow, but there's a lot of maybe Macs in the room, so the rest of these kind of apply for that. So you need to go to the just the top level and do an npm install. I mentioned you need Yarn. You'll need Yarn later. Right now we're using npm. There were some problems with some of the dependencies. So npm install, npm run bootstrap, and build. Those are the long ones. So get those things kind of going, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing. But that'll get you all the dependencies, that'll link all of, we kind of have one big mono repo right now with a lot of different packages, and so the bootstrapping does the linking that it needs and everything, and then obviously builds everything. So maybe it would be helpful to me if you could raise your hand if you are trying to or interested in following these steps, so I can just know, like, to pace it right. Okay, so we've got a few people, and I'm happy to, I mean, I don't know what that is. We okay? Did I do something? I'm just standing still. Coming from the speakers. Hold, please. This is good built-in time to do your install and build steps. Okay. Oh. You did not come properly prepared with the prerequisites. That's all right. It's fine, it's fine. Yes. Okay, sorry, yes, testing. Are we good? Yes. We're better. All right, that's all right. These things happen. Okay, so back to just a little overview of what this thing is. We call it an OS. Yes, it's an app at this point, but imagine it like an OS. This is kind of the environment that you can install your apps into. You have some system utilities that manage things like your identity and your wallets and things, and then kind of provide access to the DApps. So some of the benefits here, we, with a single install, which will be ready next week, bundle all of the required infrastructure. We're bundling Swarm node and gateways and any our daemon processes and everything that is required to run everything all in one click. It's beautiful. We've got great designers at Mainframe, and it has we're very focused on user experience, easy onboarding for users and developers. Like I said, there's the system utilities for managing things like your identity, your wallets, your contacts. There is a set of developer tools which allow you to create DApps within our environment and then deploy them, update them, and share them with other users. And the ability to install DApps. I kind of talked about some of these things. One of the things, we're very focused on user privacy, and so the user owns their data, and DApps can access the data through our SDK functions, but at any point the user can or has to grant permissions for that access. And yeah, we try to wrap functionality to make it easy to integrate, between all the different, services, so that your identity can, hold your encryption keys, which then can store data in a decentralized network and handle peer-to-peer communications. All of that is kind of bundled inside the, infrastructure and then exposed through the SDK layer. I was just saying all of this, and I should have had this slide up, but this is basically, lots of complicated stuff on the bottom, and then your DApp sits on top and can get to that complicated stuff through our simple SDK. That's the idea here. Okay, so we need to go back to. We need to go back to our setup process. So I'm hoping that we've made it through install, bootstrap, and build, and we can start creating environments. Adam, are you through install, bootstrap, build? You raised your hand that you were following along. Oh man, okay, all right. Wi-Fi is spotty. Okay, that's fine. The instructions are here. You can follow them later. Okay, next we need to create an environment. The environment is what our infrastructure uses to know whether this is development or production or whatever. So you run this environment command, and it will get you set up as a default developer environment, run the setup command, which links the binaries. Now we can run the program. So if you've made it this far, then to run the OS and to actually launch and see the UI, then there's kind of two processes that need to run in parallel. So you're going to need two tabs in your console, one to launch the daemon and the other to actually launch the launcher. We call it the launcher. That's the window. Okay, and now I have slides of all of this because I didn't want to risk. So we can follow along and pretend like we just did all of that. So the first time you launch the OS, you get into the onboarding screens. And the first one is to secure your vault. And your vault is basically your collection of user data. Right now it's stored locally on your machine, all encrypted. So you get to pick your password first off. Then we need to create an identity. And your identity is basically tied to a swarm hash. I don't know if that's important. We try to make it not important for people to know, but that's really what's happening under the hood. We have this concept of discoverable. So if you choose at this point to make yourself discoverable, you're basically allowing certain of your properties, your identity properties, which right now just includes basically your name and your ETH address, to be published in a way that other Mainframe OS users can query and find you. So we want to be upfront about the fact that some of your information will be out there. Now, out there means other Mainframe OS users can find it, so you know. Okay, then after you set up your identity, we need a wallet. And so Mainframe OS manages Ethereum wallets for users. And you can create a new one, or you can import if you have an existing Ethereum wallet, a software wallet, or you can connect to a Ledger wallet. So you can go through any of that here. This is the onboarding. Quickest path through is just create one, give it a name. You get your seed phrase. You have to prove that you copied it and know it to make sure that you can secure your own wallet. So this again is giving users confidence that they own their data, that they control their wallets and all their information. Okay, so now that's it. We've gone through onboarding. You created a vault, an identity, and a default wallet, and now your setup is complete. And this is the applications view that you'd see. Now, this being a brand new installation, there's not much there. There will be soon a kind of marketplace or a list of suggested DApps, and that's a process. As people are building more on this, then we have a process where they can submit for consideration to be included with those lists of suggested DApps. So, okay, anyway. Now we're going to go back and actually create a DApp. So this is the OS installation setup process, onboarding. It's the same process that end users would go through and developers would go through. So developers are users and need to have all the same things kind of set up. But this is the kind of end user experience as well. Yeah, you can kind of explore all of the things that we set up during the setup can be changed, edited, viewed later. Anyway, there's a whole thing about connecting with other users. Given the network situation right now, I think we won't go into that, but just know one of the big things that we have enabled is this ability, on this peer-to-peer network for users to connect with each other to share private information. So if you're interested in that, digging into that a little bit further, you can talk to us after. Okay, creating a DApp. So we have extended the Create React App tool. It's called Create Mainframe DApp. And it basically, you run it and end up, well, you clone it. You clone the repo and you end up with a basic project that has our integrations and our structure kind of pre-built into it. So you can go to this repo. All of this is in my slides, but it's also on the developer documentation that we were kind of looking at earlier. Clone the repo and install the dependencies, build that gets you your build folder that should have an index.html file in it, and that's kind of the entry into your new DApp. And so the basic DApp that's created as a result of this includes the integration to our SDK, so it comes pre-installed with our SDK packages, and an integration with a UI toolkit that we've published called Morpheus UI. And Morpheus UI is basically a collection of React components that we use internally to style our own work, but you know, we've published it so others can use it to make kind of native mainframe dApps as well. Okay, now assuming you've gone through and you've got your Create Mainframe DApp done, and you've got a folder and you've got a build folder and you've got this thing, typically you would run like a yarn start there, and that would serve it up locally, and you could run it in the browser. Well, now because we've injected our mainframe SDK dependencies, it's not going to run in your browser anymore. It has to run within our environment. So we have to get it imported into our environment. So you go back to the OS, and under the More tab on the left, there's a link at the top that says App Development Tool. I can't remember what wording we ended up on that. App Development Tool. And that's where you can manage all of your own dApps. So we're going to go through the process there of now adding your DApp, the one you just created with Create Mainframe DApp, to Mainframe OS. So you give it a name, give it a version, just a little bit of metadata, and then point it to the build folder. That's what, like I said, is structured the way we need it to be able to display it within the OS. The next screen is interesting. It's a set of permissions that we're going to present to end users when they install your DApp. But it's a collection of things like, you know, what data are you going to access? What external URLs are you going to access? Are we doing blockchain transactions? You know, just whatever data and external kind of portals and things that you're going to access. That way we can be upfront with the users as they're installing your DApp, as they're using your DApp, exactly, you know, what you're trying to do. And then we confirm your permissions and save it. And then ta-da, now you have a DApp in the OS. And this is your first DApp. You could have any number of DApps there. Now, and then, so if you click on one, then you get to the details screen. And that's where you can launch it. Now, launching a DApp from inside Mainframe OS means you're in a kind of a sandbox environment. It does open a separate window, but it's, you know, Mainframe OS kind of controls the window and controls, we call it the trusted UI, is, you know, kind of a section at the top of the window that where we can display these permissions, and we can display any UI that's triggered by SDK calls. So you see the app details, click open, and this is the view of what your new DApp can look like. In the in the address bar at the top, you can modify it. So right now, that's going to display kind of your static files that were built previously. You can modify it so it points to localhost 3000 if you're serving it and you want to have kind of faster reaction times. Another point about this trusted UI, you'll see a couple other things. That the content path, I guess we called it, at the top is kind of the address bar. And then it tells you which network you're on. There is a place in the settings where you can change which network you're running on if you want to run on a different test net or something. Within a limited set of networks, I suppose, that we support. But and then at the very right side, there's I don't have a picture of it, but that's a drop-down that shows which wallet you're kind of operating under. That kind of gives context for how. So as an app is launched, it's within the context of your kind of current default wallet, and that's the wallet that would be used to send funds or to sign transactions or any kind of blockchain interactions that happen from there. And yeah, when you launch your app, it also brings up the kind of standard Chromium developer tools, so you can debug as usual. Okay, I kind of ran through that really fast. I was going to go slower, but I started talking too fast, and also I think it's hard to actually do these steps. So we have lots of people here who are eager to help, and honestly, if anybody wants to go through all these steps, we can try to do it. We can hotspot whatever we need to do to help guide anybody through it. The point is, we have some bounties projects that we're promoting. So we're offering $5,000 in prizes in 3 different categories. One is the best user. These are all for DApps built on Mainframe OS. Now, as you saw, a DApp can, your DApp can do a lot of things and it just kind of lives inside of Mainframe OS. So you have access to the Web3 provider through our SDK. You can access any, and we have some wrapped blockchain functions in the SDK. I guess I should have probably talked a little bit more about our documentation. Back on the documentation site, we do have, the SDK. Oh, I was worried that was not going to load that time. Okay, our SDK functions are identified here. A lot of them have to do with contacts, identity, blockchain, those kind of different areas. But back to our bounties, we are offering in 3 categories. One is your best user experience. As you can see, we care about user experience. We're thinking a lot about, and we want to enable this functionality for developers, but we at the very same time want to make sure that it's accessible to end users, because they kind of go together. Without one, you don't need the other, and vice versa. So we care about end user experience. We want to see beautiful things being built, and we're trying to take some of the pain away. By us taking care of wallets, contacts, identity, it means you don't have to worry about that in your DApp. You can just trust that your end users already have already set up all that stuff, and you get free access to it. So spend your time doing the more interesting work in your DApps, and we'll reward you for it. So best user experience, most impactful to society. We're definitely believers in the promise of blockchain and the things that it can unlock for underserved populations and for globalization and just that's why we're all here, right? So we want to see a DApp that has good social impact. And then best overall use of our SDK. If you dig in and want to really use the functions that we've exposed and the integrations that we offer, then that's what that one's for. All of these projects, one of the criteria is, kind of feasibility or ambition. We want to see good ideas, even if they're not like 100% functional. We're, in this space, just like the rest of you, there's a lot of things that, are still in progress. And so, so let's not be limited by those things, but, show us your ambition with your projects, for sure. I need to back up just a second because I kind of glossed over one of the main things that our platform kind of offers is this notion of unstoppable DApps. And this is something that, we talk about, we hear about, but very real things happen in very real places. And Wikipedia gets banned in Turkey, and, that feels shocking, that in big parts of the world, things aren't available. And so, a big part of what we're trying to do is make things unstoppable, uncensorable, to remove those single points of failure that, introduce those vulnerabilities. So at the end of our process, we back up, I guess, a little, but once you have your DApp running inside our OS, the final step is to publish it. And by publishing it, it distributes it to this peer-to-peer swarm network that you're a part of by having installed the OS. So then you can share those DApps with other users. Now, I said the binaries are coming soon, and they will. In the meantime, what you get when you build from source is access to a gateway, a swarm gateway. It doesn't actually have a full swarm node running locally. The swarm gateway has size limitations to what you can actually upload, so that's why I a little bit glossed over the publish, because it's harder to do with the setup that we have today. And that won't be part of the judging criteria. You don't have to get to publish in order to qualify for our bounty prizes. So that, I think, is what I wanted to talk about. But I'm excited to hear any questions, or like I said, we've got a lot of people here. If I don't know the answers, one of them will. Is there anybody that has any questions about what we're doing or what you could do with us? We are way, way open to collaboration and contributions to our core project. We really want to build out the DApp offerings. So there's tons of room for working together, and all of our stuff is open source. So we're happy to help anybody kind of get going. And like I said, this has been what we've been totally focused on for the last year, and this represents kind of the first real public offering that it's had. So it's time to exercise it and help us wrap it, get it polished and wrapped up. So if there's not any questions, that's, yeah. Yeah, so our SDK provides a Web3 provider. So you can access the Web3 provider through the SDK call, and then you basically have access to the Web3 library. We do have a few additional functions that are kind of wrapped, so you don't necessarily have to go straight to the Web3 library. If you're executing transactions, I'm trying to think like what those basic and payments, the contracts. So yeah, some of those basic kind of functions on the Web3 library are wrapped, and you can use our SDK functions to get to them. But if you need full, more access, then you can just use that Web3 provider and call through. So that's kind of how, a DApp living inside of our ecosystem, has access to anything that it needs from that Web3 library. It does use Infura. It's optional. Yeah. It defaults to Infura. You can configure it differently. And I kind of mentioned the ability to switch test networks and everything that's under the settings. But yeah, it defaults to an Infura kind of connection there. Yeah. It's built on Ethereum. Yeah, not its own blockchain. So we are trying to bring together technologies developed by great projects out there into kind of a cohesive installation bundle that makes them a lot easier to develop on, and then possible, like a lot easier for users. It's one thing when you're a developer to say, okay, I'll go through the pain of installing these, installing all the infrastructure that I need, but like you have to think about what your users are going to have access to, right? And so by us bundling these services under the hood, it means you as a developer can trust that your end users have all the infrastructure already in place that they need. Does that answer your question, kind of? Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And like I said, we'll be here all weekend.